Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling two really big shifts happening in the global economy, things you absolutely need to understand.
That's right. We're talking about the expanding BRICS economic alliance and also the latest round of U.S. tariffs.
And we're not just skimming the surface here. We want to pull out the key insights, drawing from expert analysis.
Exactly. The aim is to get beyond the headlines, really explore what these developments mean for how the world economy is changing and ultimately what it means for you.
Okay, so let's dive straight into BRICS. Originally, it was Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa.
The original five.
But now the club's gotten bigger. We're seeing countries like Saudi Arabia, Iran, Egypt joining. So what's the real significance of this expansion? Is it just numbers?
Well, it's definitely more than just numbers. I mean, the numbers are impressive, don't get me wrong. BRICS now represents, over 40% of the world's population?
Oh, okay.
And a really substantial chunk of global GDP. But the key thing, I think, is who joined.
The energy producers.
Exactly. Bringing in major players like Saudi Arabia and Iran, that seriously boosts their collective economic muscle. It gives them a much stronger platform, potentially, to offer, an alternative to the Western-led financial system.
Right. And there's been so much buzz about a single BRICS currency, something to challenge the U.S. dollar. How realistic is that right now?
Yeah, that idea gets a lot of attention. It captures the imagination, doesn't it? A BRICS dollar.
It does.
But the reality is, it faces some pretty significant hurdles. Economic, structural. The member countries are just very different.
So not happening tomorrow?
Not tomorrow, no. It seems more like a long-term aspiration, if anything. What is happening, though, and much more actively, is this push for trading in their own local currencies.
Ah, okay. So less about one big new currency and more about bypassing the dollar in individual deals.
Precisely. We're seeing actual examples, like China and Brazil doing more and more trade using Yuan and Rays. And Russia's been using the Yuan quite a bit in its dealings with other BRICS nations, too.
So this trend of using local currencies, if that keeps growing, what does that mean for the dollar's dominance?
Well, it definitely raises a question mark, doesn't it? If more and more international trade happens outside the dollar system, its unchallenged position could erode over time. It's certainly something to watch.
Okay, let's pivot now. Switch gears to the U.S. side of things. The Biden administration recently hiked tariffs on certain Chinese goods. We're talking EVs, semiconductors, steel. What's the main driver behind that?
From the U.S. viewpoint, it looks like there are sort of two main goals. First, there's a clear desire to protect key domestic industries they see as vital for, economic security.
Right, bringing manufacturing back, that kind of thing.
Sort of, yeah. And second, it's also a strategic move, an attempt to counter what Washington perceives as China's growing technological lead in really important areas.
But these actions, tariffs, they never happen in a vacuum, do they? There are always potential downsides, ripple effects.
Absolutely. That's a crucial point. While tariffs might aim to help domestic firms, they can also mean, higher prices for American consumers. Import costs go up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And maybe more significantly, there's always the risk of retaliation from the country being targeted, in this case, China.
And what might retaliation from China look like? What levers do they have?
China actually has some significant leverage. One possibility that gets talked about is restricting exports of critical materials.
You mean like rare earth metals?
Exactly, like rare earth metals. These things are, they're essential for so much modern technology. Smartphones, EVs, like we mentioned, but also advanced defense systems.
So if China restricts those exports,
it could cause major disruptions for U.S. tech companies, for manufacturers, even for the defense sector. It's a dependency that gives Beijing, quite a bit of influence.
Okay, so we've got BRICS expanding, flexing its economic muscles, pushing for alternatives, and then we have the U.S. putting up these trade barriers with China. How do these two big trends interact? Could the U.S. tariffs actually, maybe inadvertently, push more countries towards BRICS?
That's a really interesting dynamic to consider. It's certainly plausible. Think about it. If a country finds itself facing higher U.S. tariffs, more trade friction, it naturally makes sense for them to look for other partners, right? To diversify away from dependence on the U.S. market.
And BRICS is sitting there looking like a potential alternative.
Precisely. With its growing economic weight and its narrative of offering a different path, BRICS could become, more attractive to nations feeling squeezed by U.S. policy. So, yeah, in a way, U.S. protectionism might unintentionally strengthen the appeal of the very bloc it seems wary of.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit then. Take a bigger picture view. What does all this suggest about where the global economy is heading? Are we really seeing a fundamental shift?
Well, the signs increasingly point towards, perhaps, a more fragmented global economic landscape. You could argue we're seeing the early outlines forming of maybe two competing spheres of influence.
Like one bloc led by the U.S. and its allies and another centered around BRICS?
Kind of, yeah. One perhaps anchored by the U.S. and its traditional partners, and the other increasingly shaped by this expanded BRICS group and countries aligning more with them. It suggests a move away from the sort of unipolar moment we saw after the Cold War.
And what would this kind of fracturing mean for businesses operating globally, for example, and, for individuals, for you listening?
For businesses, it's definitely a mixed bag. On one hand, you could see more trade barriers, different regulations between these blocs, making things more complex, more costly.
More headaches, basically.
More headaches, yeah. But on the other hand, the growth within those BRICS economies, those expanding markets, that could also open up significant new opportunities for investment and growth.
And for us as individuals?
The impacts could be varied. You might see shifts in where manufacturing happens, where tech jobs are located, potential bumps in supply chains we rely on, but also perhaps new investment opportunities in those economies that are benefiting from BRICS growth. The bottom line is things are becoming more complex. Staying informed and being adaptable is going to be really key.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. Key takeaways seem to be, first, the significant growth of BRICS, boosting its economic clout and positioning itself as, a potential alternative framework, even if a single currency is still far off.
Right. And second, these new U.S. tariffs targeting key Chinese industries. The stated goal is protecting domestic interests, but they come with real risks, price hikes, retaliation.
And critically, how these two forces might be linked. U.S. trade actions could maybe push more countries toward that BRICS orbit, accelerating this shift towards a more multipolar world.
That seems to be the direction things are heading, yes. The influence of BRICS certainly appears to be on an upward path in this evolving landscape.
So here's a final thought we want to leave you with today. Really something to mull over. Given these powerful trends, this rise of a major alternative economic bloc with BRICS, and the growing friction in global trade, what kind of strategies, what proactive steps might individuals, businesses, maybe even whole nations need to start thinking about now to successfully navigate this fundamentally changing global landscape?
It's a crucial question for the coming years.
Definitely something to keep thinking about. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.